Let's consider the evidence. We have many a coach and many a guru who has an astounding backstory relating to loss, trauma, alcoholism, addiction, all of the very toxic attributes and sad circumstances that you can imagine. We have a willing market of people who are keen to escape from the shackles they feel they're in. And those shackles may have been forged by their own backgrounds and their own experiences, which relates to trauma and divorce, addiction, alcoholism, and such like. So what you have is people who are susceptible to a message from somebody they perceive as knowing how they feel. And so the personal growth coach sometimes can be born out of the ashes of these circumstances and be seen as a means of rescue and salvation. And if you have somebody who has not had a lot of exposure to developing the skills and the disciplines and the systems they need, now we're going to have a problem. And if you're working with people who haven't had the background, the education, the skills or knowledge or the breaks to be able to develop the techniques and the strategies and the systems that they require to get themselves out of the problems, they're going to be caught between a rock and a hard place. The rock being their perception of their own lives as being less than perfect. The hard place being having the ability to develop the skills to get out of their problems. And in between the rock and the hard place, it's very easy to sell motivation. It's very easy to sell dopamine fixes. It's very easy to sell false hope. And if a person exposes themselves to enough of this, then what's going to result is a form of learned helplessness. So that even if they find themselves in a better situation where their problems are not so great, they will find themselves trapped, unable to escape, unable to get away from the pain that they've inflicted on themselves and they've customized for themselves. Essentially, a person who is over invested in personal growth and dopamine fixes and fake motivation, essentially that person has become the third dog. So how do we extricate ourselves? How do we cease to be the third dog? How do we wean ourselves from the dopamine addiction and bad habit of relying on fake motivation? As I've said before, one way is to engage in disciplined, repetitive actions, compounding on a daily basis. Another way to release ourselves from the dopamine addiction and the motivation frenzy is to learn to be more disciplined, lower our expectations, and disconnect that small voice of entitlement that may be running in your background. So when I suggest you have a small voice of entitlement running in your background, it's not an accusation, it's not a moral judgment. But consider this. If you think that you can flick a switch and solve all your problems with one quick motivational fix, isn't that unrealistic? Isn't it a little bit entitled to believe that you deserve to have one quick fix, one thing that's going to solve all your problems? And even if it isn't entitled to believe that, isn't it strange that there are people out there who will exploit that desire within you? Is there something wrong with those people? Are they pulling the wool over your eyes? And are they exploiting the fact that you are lost, stuck between a rock and a hard place? I'll invite you to consider that. Going forward, I'd like to continue this series of discussions about the personal growth industry and see how we can achieve escape velocity from some of the traps. We now are living in a trust recession, and we live in a glut of information inflation. This means that it's never been easier to access fake hope or false motivation. Unfortunately, the way that media, consumerism, and algorithms are formed is to exploit our need for dopamine spikes. So if you find yourself on that hamster wheel, you're going to have to start asking yourself some serious questions. First of all, don't blame yourself for being on it, because to some extent it's not your fault. Secondly, realize you've got to draw a line somewhere between blaming society, community, consumerism and social media and starting to achieve autonomy and authority over your own future. So have a think about that. So do be aware that learned helplessness is being lost and in despair. And if you feel that you cannot escape your predicament, then you are in a situation of learned helplessness. But I'd like you to consider as well that sometimes those who come to your rescue are coming with plastic gifts. If and where somebody is offering you false hope and get it quick fix motivation and dopamine spikes, that person is selling you short. And the advantages to that person is that they're going to keep you coming back for more. So in short, if we were to look at a motive for the personal growth industry selling motivation and false hope, it is that it keeps the industry running. It keeps the customer coming back for more. In the same way that any other kind of industry that sells quick fix, feel good chemicals or substances always wants you to come back for more. So ask yourself this question. In your endeavors and in your personal growth, your journey, are you actually seeking positive outcomes, or are you on a hamster wheel running in circles, feeding the dopamine junkie inside you? And are the people that you're investing your hard-earned cash into exploiting this fact, either consciously or unconsciously? So I'm going to make my tracks now, fellow seeker. I would like to leave you with one final thought, if I may. As always, whatever it is you dare to do or dream, in it.